Shalom everyone, my name is Cielo Rocha. I'm in the group Pre Jóvenes Peregrinando, and this is my contribution about the chapter 2 of Romans in verses 1 to 6. We'll start to the first verse and talk about the Torah for one who lives. So say, know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the Torah, how the Torah hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. So as we see in this part, Paul addresses them as knowers of the Torah, and therefore it was weight and dominion over the flesh, both the law of the flesh, which refers to everything that its word contains, and the heavenly, which is the true law that gives life. And then he says, as a man as long as he lived. We know that our transgressions and service are counted in this flesh still breathes, because we have conscience and reasons about our actions. When we die, we're incapable for anything, for obvious reasons. It's not told because when we die, our time in this earth ends. In the next verse says, talk about the marriage, and say, for the woman which hath a husband, it's bound by the law to her husband so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. Here Paul uses the example of marital union, an example between the Torah, Yeshua, and the sin. If a woman joins her husband, she must hold on to him, because they're one, and the man is the head of the woman, just as Yeshua is the head, and we must submit to him. In the next verse, talk about allusion to adultery, and says, so then, if, while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. If he dies, she is free from being tried to adultery if she decides to reunite with another man. But if she is still alive, he is still alive, and she joins another man, she will be accused of adultery. So having her husband being in an union, she joins another. So thus the love of sin or the flesh. Before we met the Messiah, we were in an union with the darkness or with the world. When this old man died, our last husband died, we entered in communion with Yeshua, a new husband, and we must be faithful to him, for he is our head and our new husband. We have to respect him. In the next verse, it's number 4, says the carnal law. And say, therefore, my brothers, you also have died to the law of the word by the body of the Messiah, that you marry another with him who was raised from the dead, so that we may bear fruit of to Elohim. So here Paul rectifies that the dying to the word, to the old man, and we enter in communion with the Messiah, we enter in a new marriage, and Yeshua is the husband again, and therefore we must respect him and submit to him, because the wife submit to her husband and is faithful to him, waiting him. If we return to the carnality, being in an union with the Messiah, we will be blamed for infidelity and adultery with the law of the word, judged by the Torah, boning the soul that since will die refers to spiritual death, but by Yeshua we have grace. In the next verse, talking about the fruits of sin, and says, for when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin, which whereby worked in our members to bring forth the fruits of death. Here Paul again refers to the fact that therefore entering a communion with the Messiah, law of sin and carnality causing in our souls the fruit of death, which by the Torah is punishable by death. My last contribution is the last verse, is the verse 6, and talk about Joshua allusion to the marital fidelity. And the verse 8, but now we are released from the Torah of our husband, the flesh, being dead to which we were held, so that we serve in novelty of the Ruach, and not in the old age of letter. So here's Paul continues to ratify the importance of taking communion with the Torah and the Messiah in a personal and radical way. Since, as we know, lukewarmness as punishment to be vomited from the mouth of Elohim. Here, where it says that we may serve in novelty of the Ruach and not in old age of letter, Paul refers to serving as a new man, for we are forgiven and can start over without being taken into account past sins, nor in old age of letter. Again, judged by the Torah, it's a soul that sins will die refers, again, spiritual die or spiritual death. We are forgiven to be a new man, to serve the eternal Almighty, which with all our strength, with all our mind, and with all our heart, bound with our body and reasons to exalt and serve Him, not like the nations, but as indicated by the Torah, and as our head Yeshua show us, is serving in integrity, holiness, and with Him. This theme, it's usually to lie. No, it is not the hearers but the doers who will be justified. But now fight comes to save us. That's the grace of Yeshua. In obedient fight, religious fight are whole commandments and vain prophecies in disobedient, and full of emotions and philosophies worse of man. The biblical fight is having security, a certain obedience to what the Eternal says. And the one who hears, believes, and sees that is true and sure, and clings to it. We have an example in Hebrews chapter 7, verses 6 to 8. And it's, now without fight it's impossible to please Him, because he who comes to Elohim must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. By fight Abraham, being called by Elohim, obedient, and went out to the place that he was received an inheritance, and went out not knowing where he was going. The biblical fight without certainty and conviction of what the Eternal say with His prophets and what He tells us even today, is sin. If through Yeshua we hear the promises of the eternal kingdom, and contrary Yeshua, the perfect whiteness and Korban, it is not a biblical fight. But if we believe and are certain of what He say and promise us, we have new heavens and new earth, even without having tainted what He told us, believing without seeing places the Creator. The fight we follow is not a blind fight. It is believing in what is not seen, but through Yeshua and her promise in the promise does exist. It is a fight that believes in what it does not see, but that exists because the Creator says so. Religion distorts eternal rewards with material things. The fight of the world is based on emotions and materialism. His perspective is based on the flesh, which its temporality. They brag about what they do. Their fight is based on theological and philosophical lies. but through the Messiah, through whom we all have forgiveness and redemption of our souls. Faith is demonstrated by actions. Without them, it is a dead fight. Nor it is by action, but by the combination of conviction and actions with and for Elohim. Because the Eternal calls the nations to be different from the rest of the others. No assimilating. This is my contribution, and shalom.